Hello and welcome back to our introduction and guide to supported decision making. My name is Jonathan Martinis. I'm the Senior Director for Law and Policy at the Burton Blatt Institute at Syracuse University. In this session, we're going to talk about the research behind self-determination that shows why it's a good thing when people have the right to make choices, when they have the opportunity to be in control of their lives. Now, remember, last time I told you that I'm not here to say there should never be a guardian, that guardianship is always wrong, that you are somehow evil if you are a guardian, if you're even thinking about seeking guardianship. But what I am here to tell you is that guardianship is never ever needed just because you have an IQ of X, or because you are Y years old, or because you need a little bit of help, or the two worst reasons, because that's the way it's always been, and because it's for your own good. Because it's for your own good. Think about that for a second. Have you ever heard the phrase, relax, it's for your own good, and had something good happen? Of course not. That's right before you get the injection. And yet, for 2,000 years, consistently, even reflexively, that's what we've been saying to people with disabilities, that it's for your own good to lose your rights. We mean well. We are trying to protect you when we do this. Well, think about that. On your screen right now is a quote from the United States Supreme Court in a case from 1928. What they said is that when we mean the most well is when we have to be the most careful, because the greatest dangers to liberty lurk and lie when we mean well, but we don't understand the consequences of what we're doing. When we mean well, when we want to protect people, but don't know what happens when our protection goes wrong. I mean, think about it this way. I hear all the time that someone needs a guardianship to protect them, because if they're without a guardianship, they might make a bad choice. They might sign something they shouldn't sign, or do something they shouldn't do, or meet someone they shouldn't meet. Now, if you're out there today, I want you to think, have you ever signed a lease, or have you ever closed on a mortgage? I have, about 5 times actually. And when I closed on my mortgage, I was putting hundreds of thousands of dollars of my money and 30 years of my life in the hands of a bank. Went to a closing ceremony, sat around a table, me, lawyers, the sellers, the agent. There was a stack of papers about this high. My agent said, sign them. Now, if you had a similar experience, ask yourself this question. Did you, like me, not read those papers before you signed them? If you didn't, you made a bad decision. Maybe you need a guardian. Have you ever had a medical procedure like surgery? I have, just recently. You go to the hospital, your heart's going 1,000 miles an hour, you're meeting doctors and nurses and anesthesiologists, and all of them are putting papers in front of your face, and they're saying, sign them. Like me, did you sign them without reading them? If you did, you made a bad decision. Maybe you need a guardian. You ever do any late night shopping? You ever buy some ill-advised fitness equipment or a pasta maker at 3 in the morning? It's a bad decision. Maybe you need a guardian. Now ask this question. You ever make a bad decision and learn from it? Date the wrong person and know what a good relationship is as a result? Buy a horrible car and say, I'm never buying that brand again? Think about it. You made horrible decisions and you learned from them. You fell down and you got up better, smarter, stronger as a result. So your bad choices made you who we are. Think about what would have happened if we meant well and took away your right to make those choices. Could you have learned? Could you be the person you are right now? Now do this for me. Think about what things were like for people with disabilities in 1995. 1995 was just 5 years after the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. It was 4 years before the Olmstead decision, so it was still perfectly okay to warehouse people with disabilities in institutions. It was still perfectly okay to consider placement in a sheltered workshop as a preferred employment option. We didn't have programs like Medicaid waivers and supports and services like we have now. Now think about today, 21 years later. Community integration is a right. Community-based employment is an expectation. We carry, almost all of us, computers in our pockets that are more powerful than anything that was on a desk in 1995. We have more supports and services to help more people in more ways be more independent than ever before. Answer me this question. Why have the estimated number of adults under guardianship tripled in just the last 21 years? We've lost a generation. 1 million more people are under guardianship today than just 20 years ago, even though we have more ways to help them be more independent. Why? I think it's because we meant well. And that meaning well without understanding the consequences is a very bad thing. Research and studies have shown that when people are under overbroad or undue guardianships, when they have restrictions that they don't need, they can have significant effects on their lives. They are less healthy. They live less long. They have less objective and subjective mental health, meaning not only are they less healthy, they feel less healthy. They do less things. On the other hand, people who have more self-determination, who make more choices, one study showed that people who are older, who have more self-determination, are better able to adjust and plan and deal with increasing care needs. Now think about how important that is if you're working with a person with a progressive disability like Alzheimer's-related dementia, MS or MD. Giving those people more choices, more power over their lives will help them be better involved in their care, better adjust to their increasing care needs. People with disabilities who have more choices, who have more self-determination, are more likely to be employed, more likely to be independent, and safer. And that's probably the number one reason I hear for guardianship, is that guardianship will keep people safe. Like the guardians will be able to keep anything bad from happening from them, like they're the guardians of the galaxy. There was a professor at Lyon University named Professor Kemke who tested that theory. If you don't know this, you should. Women with intellectual disabilities are far more likely to be sexually assaulted than any other women. Well, Professor Kemke decided that what if we had people with intellectual disabilities, women with intellectual disabilities, with more self-determination? So she gave them access to a curriculum that would increase their self-determination. And after they had completed the curriculum, she tested them on recognizing sights and symbols of abuse. And the ones with more self-determination were better able to recognize potentially abusive situations and therefore better able to avoid abuse. They were safer. On your screen right now is a summary of a study called the National Core Indicators Study. It's done every year. It's what we call an apples-to-apples study within states. The idea being they were looking to see what were the factors that led to quality of life. They looked at a whole ton of factors. One of the ones they looked at was whether or not people had a guardian. And across the country and across the board, people who did not have guardians were more likely to have paid jobs, live independently, have friends other than paid staff, go on dates and socialize in the community, and practice the religion of their choice. Now, if you've ever heard of the Olmsted decision, which said that people with disabilities have the right to be part of their communities, to community integration, ask yourself this. What is a better indicator of community integration than having friends, having a job, dating, going to the church you want to go to? So where do we go from here? If we can agree that self-determination is a good thing, and we can agree that losing self-determination is a bad thing, then we can move forward and think that we need to find ways to increase and improve people's self-determination. But we also have to recognize something, and that's this. Some people need more help than others. We all need help doing something. But some people with disabilities need more help doing some things than other people do. Some older adults need more help doing some things than other people do. So what we need to do, I think, is we need to find a way that gives people the help that they need and they want while keeping them in control of their lives. And in the next session, we're going to talk about ways to do that. Thanks so much for joining us.